Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back. I have a special commentary that I want to give here on the blackchannel.net radio program. I wanted to separate this from everything else because I believe that this actually deserves some special dispensation because you are witnessing an historic event. And I wanted to show and explain exactly why it is that this is momentous and historic and significant. Earlier this week, the Nike Corporation announced that they are making Colin Kaepernick, wrongly maligned NFL quarterback who's been fighting to get his job back in the NFL after he decided to take a stand for black people by taking a knee. He took a stand for justice by taking a knee and popularized it around the world. And the NFL retaliated by attempting to blacklist him. Nike has announced that Colin has signed a deal to be the new face of Nike, which is incredible and momentous. They released a poster that says, "Believe in something even if it costs you everything." It is taken off around the world. You know that the advertisement that you've made is a hit, and that it has become a phenomenon that has entered the cultural zeitgeist and the popular consciousness when people start imitating it. You all remember these Straight Outta Compton posters, and then people start making their own variations of it. Well, that's what they're doing with this Kaepernick one. Both friends and foes alike, but what it means is that this is marketing really nirvana. It's not even gold. This is marketing nirvana. If you are a company or a marketing firm, you want your ad to catch fire like this one has. You want people to be talking about it everywhere. You want them to be sharing it. You want them to be imitating it. You want it to show that it's captured the people's imaginations. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. And that's what's occurred here. Now, the racist media, which of course is against black people full time, the racist media attempted to say that Nike stock dropped and so on and so forth. This Nike stock did not drop. That was just a normal day. But they tried to make it seem like, oh, there's a backlash. Nike announced this and there's a backlash. There's no backlash. And 24 hours later, you didn't hear them saying, oh my, the stock is up. Didn't hear them saying that. Why? Because they're against us. So that's it. What they did not count on was that Nike was going to do such a thing. But in reality, I want you all to understand what's really going on here. I want you to understand what's really happening. For those of you who did not know, there was actually a bidding war going on between Nike, Reebok, and Adidas. All of them wanted Colin Kaepernick. All of them wanted him. And let me explain to you why it is. Colin Kaepernick is the single most identifiable athlete on the planet today, with the exception of perhaps LeBron James. He is definitely the most well-known personality in the NFL. Ironic considering the fact that he's not even playing in the NFL right now. Colin Kaepernick is the face of the NFL. He is the de facto face of the NFL. Despite their attempts to push him out, he is in fact now the face of the NFL. Their attempts to remove him have backfired. Now, do you all know what the great irony of this is? The NFL attempted to make him disappear by preventing him to play. If they had allowed Kaepernick to play, because let's just be honest here, Kaepernick was not a stellar quarterback. He was a good quarterback, by many regards a very good quarterback, but his consistency was always an issue. If the NFL had allowed him to play, and if he pulled a Rex Grossman or something, if he was unable to compete at a very high level over 2 or 3 seasons, then they could have gone ahead and just phased him out. And they would have had cover by simply saying, well, he wasn't able to get back to the Super Bowl and we don't see any reason to, it's just not working. If they had done that, They could have phased Kaepernick out. And none of this would be going on today. But by doing what they did, by removing him when there was still a big question mark around his performance and his productivity, by removing him from the game when there was still question about how good he could actually be at it, now you have allowed people to say this guy could be one of the greatest of all time if they had simply let him play. So now you have created a martyr out of him, because people are not looking at what he did. They are attaching themselves to what they feel about him, and what they, part of that is projecting onto him what they feel he could have done. They feel he is a great person, and so they are projecting that because he's a great person, he also could have been a fantastic quarterback. Whether it's factual or not is immaterial. This is what the popular consciousness feels about him. And fighting him is a loser. Nike has gone on after winning the bidding war. And once again, irony of ironies, the NFL was attempting to prevent him from making a living, prevent him from being able to capitalize on being a part of professional sports. And now he's going to be probably one of the highest paid people ever in professional sports without actually playing in professional sports. Colin Kaepernick has probably swung a better deal for himself without playing than he would playing. And I'm going to get back to you in a few minutes here about why this is on his behalf, why this is not the sweet spot. This is the sweetest spot. This is like frozen molasses. It's so thick with benefit. Kaepernick and Nike, they're going to start doing ads now that they're going to run during the NFL games. So not only could the NFL not get away from Kaepernick, Nike is bringing it front and center. This is all making cascading marketing buzz for Nike. They can't lose on this. But let me get to you about why this was the lick and why this was the deal. And Professor Scott Galloway of L2, he's had nothing but laudatory things to say about this. I want to go ahead and very quickly play for you here exactly what Professor Galloway said on one of his videos there. If you're not subscribed to L2, because I am, if you're not subscribed to it, you definitely want to be. Here's Professor Galloway's comments.
Nike makes Colin Kaepernick the face of its 30-year anniversary campaign. And immediately on social media, video of people burning their Nikes. The stock is down 3%. Was this a good move? No, this wasn't a good move. This was, in a word, genius! This is the gangster marketing move of 2018. Who is the most beloved athlete of the last 100 years? The individual that every brand in the world wishes they had their logo on? Muhammad Ali, a man who was stripped of his Olympic medals because he refused to sign up for the draft. We don't look favorably on people because of their beliefs. We look favorably on them because of their convictions, their willingness to sacrifice. And history is going to look back on Mr. Kaepernick very favorably. Where did I get these tasty snacks? Whoops. Yesterday, Nike. That's right. Just do it. This is the best marketing move we have seen in ages. It's bold. Michael Jordan summarized the viewpoint in the 90s. Republicans buy shoes too. It was smart for brands to stay out of politics. But unfortunately now, everything has been politicized by the White House. And the president has politicized all sports. The last bastion, the last oasis from all this bullshit has been politicized. So brands are forced to step into the fray, and Nike is on the right side of this. Nike would have loved to endorse Muhammad Ali. They couldn't. They endorsed the Muhammad Ali of our generation. And by the way, the math is on their side. Regardless of what you think of who's right or wrong on this issue, effectively the organization has arbitraged or traded older conservatives from red states whose, by the way, disposable income is declining, and traded them in for younger, affluent, urban consumers who tend to be more progressive. This was a good trade. Was this the right thing to do? We'll see. Was it the shareholder-driven thing to do? 100%. Nike just did it.
So there you have it from Professor Galloway, who has accurately predicted some incredible things there. By the way, when he talks about gangster moves, it's not meant to be an urban reference. It's a reference that he made, basically saying that this is your way of bogarting and jamming your way into a situation against opposition, against the organized, established opposition. Sometimes you can walk in, and sometimes you just got to gangster your way in. He referred to Amazon and Facebook as both being gangsterizing their ways in. And Nike, in this case here, said we're not going to ask for anything. Now, what he just explained to you was actually the genius of this and why it was the intelligent thing to do. 30 years ago, Nike caught lightning in a bottle. If you go and take a look at it, there was a documentary on Netflix that talked about this. And Michael Jordan was not really who they wanted. Michael was not who they wanted. I forget if it was Patrick Ewing or Elijah Wan or someone. But Jordan was not actually who Nike wanted. Because they felt that they wanted someone who was more like Dr. J or Muhammad Ali. Somebody who was like Hulk Hogan. He could speak well. He was charismatic. He smiled at the ladies. They wanted that all-around archetype who could be a promoter of their brand. Michael Jordan, in case you all have forgotten or have ignored it, Michael was not flashy. Michael was not talkative. Michael was not outspoken. Michael was not effusive. Look it up. Michael was not this gregarious individual who went around grabbing the microphone and cutting these great promos like Dwayne Johnson. That's not what Michael did. Michael was very soft-spoken. Michael didn't talk very much. I mean, was he from the Carolinas? I want to say South Carolina. He was just really aw shucks. I mean, really, he was not Tigger. He was Eeyore. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Jordan, and I think this would be a good shoe for you to buy because them folks over there paid me to tell you that. Michael's skill wasn't on the microphone. Michael's skill was on the court. He was worth 2 cents on the microphone, but he was worth billions on that court because his level of play was simply indomitable. So what you had in Michael Jordan was an athlete, a corporate spokesman who didn't speak. That was the difference with Michael. You had a corporate spokesman who did not speak. He didn't speak. He didn't talk. Yes, there were times that he did talk, but his thing wasn't talking. He was never going to be the ad man like Joe Montana was, or I'm trying to think, the other quarterback, Joe Namath. Or Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw did, car commercials for Ford, I want to say. Terry Bradshaw had the gift of gab. Joe Namath could talk. Joe Theismann. These were all guys who could move from the playing field to the announcer's desk. Deion Sanders, Michael Irving. These were all guys who could move from the playing field to the announcer's desk and do it well. Michael Jordan could not make that transition. He was a fantastic player, but he couldn't do anything else. But he was phenomenal at what he did play. And Nike was able to take that and they say, okay, he can't talk, we'll be his spokesperson. Like what Paul Heyman does with Brock Lesnar. He can't talk, I'll be the spokesperson. You just sit there and be mean and intimidating looking and dominating, and I'll take care of the talking. That's what they did with Michael Jordan for 15 years. But there was a problem. Nike had created this incredible paradigm which changed sports and sports marketing forever, where you had a singular athlete that you would use as the marquee for your brand. Up until that point, that had not been done. You tried to capitalize on a sport, not on an individual. But they were able to make Michael Jordan the face of their brand, and because he was such a phenomenal player, by association, you said, I got to get those shoes so I can be like Mike. When in reality, you could never be like Mike. His shoes never helped a single human being in the history of footwear become a better athlete. They did help you become $200 lighter and help him be one of the richest people in America. But other than that, that's it. But it worked. It was novel, it was new, but because they had bet on the right horse, because Michael could have been a bust. He could have been. He could have been a bust. He could have been a Ryan Leaf. He could have been. He wasn't, but he could have been. But he succeeded, and thus Nike succeeded. He played at an ultra-high level. Nike was associated with playing at an ultra-high level. The rest is history. However, there was a problem with this. The problem with this is that Nike may be a corporation, and corporations have, theoretically, the ability to be eternal, but athletes do not. And the problem with Michael Jordan is that even now, amazingly enough, his brand value has transcended his playing years. Michael Jordan is generally regarded as the greatest basketball player who's ever laced up a shoe. And that prestige has outlasted his actual career. So even though he is retired and hasn't played in years and years, the prestige that he brought to it and the image that he brought to it transcends all of that. And Michael has been able to maintain his standard of living and the value of his shoes as its own independent brand, even though he himself is no longer even playing in the game. This is called phenomenal. But there's a problem with that. And the problem with that is that you need to know what's next. You can't sit here and assume that you're going to be able to live off of Michael Jordan's name forever. And Nike has tried it. They've tried over and over again to get somebody else to step into that mold so they can define where their company will be for the next 15, 20 years. They've been trying. They've tried it over and over again. You all have seen it. Adidas is trying to get back into the game seriously. Reebok has always been fighting to do it. All of them are fighting to see who can get that. And in the internet age of today, where somebody is only popular for about 2 weeks, you can't depend on a, quote, marquee name. People are constantly migrating and moving on to something else. You can't put all your eggs in the basket of Michael Jordan and just say, oh, well, this will last. This will be an iconic name. Well, he is an iconic name, but the problem is that we live in an era where people, especially young people, do not put value into, quote, brands like they used to. And you have to remember, Michael Jordan's heyday started 30 years ago. You're not going to be able to keep trading on his name forever. It could end any day now. And Nike has been trying to position itself to be able to be prepared for that. Somebody at Nike saw what I saw a long time ago, and I mentioned this before, but somebody at Nike and Reebok and Adidas saw something that I saw. Now, typically this only happens for white athletes like Anna Kournikova or Maria Sharapova. They get their butts kicked by Serena Williams on the field, but yet they both make more money and are more valuable to the respective companies that they make ads for, because they're more popular off the court than they are on it. Now, we all understand that's white privilege. We all understand that Kournikova and Sharapova are benefiting from white privilege. Unfair as it is, they are beneficiaries of white privilege. That's the reason why their on-field play, even though it is deficient. Now, there's the real thing is, since when do corporations back a loser? someone who has a record of losing when the big game comes up over and over and over and over again. Kornikova and Sharapova have records of losing when it's time for the big game. So you cannot really make up any fictional reason for why you would support them over Serena Williams. They constantly lose. Who in the world wants to be in charge of a corporation that says, vote for us, we're number 2? It's supposed to be vote for us, we're number 1. But that's exactly what happens in the world of tennis. Vote for us, we're number 2. However, as I told you, in Kaepernick's place, now that we're dealing with the honest world, in Kaepernick's place, he hasn't been established as not being able to win. He hasn't been established as a loser because you have not allowed him to play. So Kaepernick is capitalizing on the ambiguity of what his playing would be, and is instead of selling his sports performance, he is selling his his personal persona as a sports figure, which he is able to do the Barack Obama thing and craft it to whatever he wants. He has become the conscience of professional sports. He hasn't become the excellence of professional sports. He has become the conscience of professional sports. And that value transcends scores and stats. That value transcends career statistics. That value transcends whatever team he plays for and actually whatever sport he could play in. That value transcends all of that, and unlike Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Terrell Davis. Who remembers Terrell Davis? For those of you who don't live in Colorado, how many of you remember Terrell Davis? There was a big controversy about him. Huge controversy about him. Terrell Davis, when he played for Denver, and then he started having these ankle issues. I think they say he had nerve problems with it, and his career was cut short. But even at that time, you had people saying that Terrell Davis should be in the NFL Hall of Fame because if he had been allowed to continue, or if he had been able to continue playing, he could have passed Gale Sayers' record. But because of that ambiguity, it made him more popular, even though he could no longer play. Because it was ambiguous and people could assume or project whatever conclusions about his playing career that they wanted to. That's where Kaepernick is sitting right now. He's in the sweet spot. Right now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to say something that's going to be ultra controversial, and Kaepernick's people are already thinking about this. I know it. Cap might want to drop his lawsuit against the NFL and just leave it be. Now, I don't mean drop it tomorrow, but Cap might want to stop fighting so hard to win this lawsuit. He might want to stop fighting so hard to get back into the league, because he's the golden boy right now because of the ambiguity about his playing ability. And as long as we can say he's a great player and he played well enough to earn the right to be on the field, as long as they don't let him back in and disprove that, then he'll retain this pinnacle of popularity he's got right now, because he has established himself as a personality outside of playing football. If he goes back to play football, now you open up the possibility of him losing. And if he starts losing, then you've taken away the justification for supporting getting him back into the league, which has been a major part of saying that it cost him everything. But if the NFL gives it back to him, then what did it cost him? So that's why I say right now, somebody should be thinking that over. You might want to be thinking that over. Do you really want to do that? Do you really want to take that chance? Because right now you got the bag. You've got the deal. And it doesn't have to just be with Nike. We can look at other things right now. He's already secured his iconic status. Right now, I would just say, man, back off and just let it ride. Back off and just let it ride. Nike, Reebok, and Adidas understand that they don't want to bet. They saw a unique opportunity with Colin Kaepernick to be able to lock down a sports figure who is not limited by his sports ability. We are selling this person as a sports icon, not as a performance athlete. And because he's not actually playing, and his popularity does not come from his playing on the field, he's not vulnerable to a winning or losing season. He's not vulnerable to a winning or losing record. Muhammad Ali was an icon even when he started losing fights because of his brain damage and whatnot. He was an icon. And that was what they were really trying to buy, is that iconic status. Kaepernick's popularity isn't going down, it's actually going up. And if anybody wondered if this was the right move, if anybody wondered about his potency, the reaction that was gained when they announced that he would be the face of their 30th year anniversary, that said right there, yeah, this was the right bet. How much further could this guy go as a goodwill ambassador, as a spokesperson? How much further could he go? How much more can you get out of him? And he is not limited or encumbered by performance as an athlete. His popularity, his appeal, his value is in his performance as a person. And that he can do this till the day he dies. Kaepernick can do this until the day he dies. Forget a win-loss record. Teams move from one city to another. Franchises move from one city to another. Franchises get people and lose. They get fans and lose fans. Kaepernick is not vulnerable to any of that. Doesn't matter what coaches think of him. Doesn't matter what team owners think of him. He has become a franchise in and of himself, separate and apart from any sports league. The limitations that you encountered when you tried to recreate the Jordan formula, Kaepernick is immune to that. And that's why in this commercial they put other people with him, Serena Williams and whatnot, because they're trying to show that that's the new formula they want to push, people's personalities, not their playing on the field. They're trying to replicate that Jordan formula, but based on character and not on playing ability. And it's genius, because the playing ability thing obviously has not worked. Your desperate attempts to find the next Michael Jordan have failed miserably. So this is the intelligent, sensible, only reasonable thing to do. Now, about the few idiots and clowns out there who are burning their shoes, let me make one thing very clear to you. I said this to you all years ago, and I will say this again. Boycotting doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the reason that boycotting doesn't work is because the only way that boycotting can work is if you upset your primary customer base. But by definition, now everybody talks about the bus boycott to the civil rights era. Well, that was different because these were individuals who were ideologues. They were not capitalists. These were government agencies that were ideologues and not capitalists. If they were capitalists, they would not have upset their black customer base to begin with. Today, what happens is a minority of customers of a business, the minority of patrons of a particular business, get upset and in a tizzy, and they tell themselves that in the internet age, their ability to put a post on Facebook or a meme on Twitter translates to them being relevant to the company that they're upset with. When in reality, you're just a few loud people but you're very easy to ignore. It's the customer base, the core customer base, that companies keep their eye on the ball, which allows them to weather any storm. Chick-fil-A can upset gay activists all they want to. They are a Christian business that makes the people who are lined up 10, 12 cars deep at lunchtime. I don't get the big deal, but some people think that Chick-fil-A is gourmet food. Some folks think, well, I won't go there, but in any case, some people think that some really mundane places are gourmet. I guess you're not used to a whole lot, but okay. All right, fine. But Chick-fil-A did not upset their core customer base, and the gay activists could be as upset as they wanted to be. But at the end of the day, they got their butts handed to them because their boycott did not work. Because in order for a boycott to work, you have to convince the core customer base, which you are not, that they should be upset also, and that the core customer base should value their angst and their displeasure with this company more than the benefits of buying this product or this service from this company. That's what you have to do. You have to convince the core customer base to defect from the company. You are not enough. You got to convince the core customer base to defect. If you fail at doing this, it doesn't work. This is why black boycotts don't work. These white companies know that we are not truly their core customer base. They can move their monies around to other places. There are not enough of us to affect their core customer base, and we don't have enough influence to affect the core customer base and convince the core customer base to abandon the company. That's why it doesn't work for us. Now, in the case of Nike, you have disgruntled, mostly middle-aged and elderly white males. And here is the problem. As has been largely criticized but well established for 30 years, Nike is a company that lives and dies on the strength of black males. Not just as the customers, but as the athletes. Nike is a black company that black people don't run, if that makes sense to you. Nike is a black company that black people don't run and don't own. But in every other aspect, it is a black company. And in order for a boycott against Nike to work, you would have to get black men to turn against Nike. The middle-aged white guys, you are not Nike's customer base. Nike doesn't care what you think because you don't drive Nike's growth. Case in point, did you see the shoes that these guys were burning? Did you see them? Did you all see the shoes that these unhappy white males were burning of Nikes? These were all old shoes. They were old shoes, people. These were shoes that were well worn. Black males don't have old Nike shoes. They go and get a new pair every year, twice a year. Those are the customers Nike wants, just like with the iPhone. They don't want people like me. They don't want people like me who hold on to a cell phone for 5 or 7 years until the screen starts blinking out and the battery post doesn't work anymore. They don't want customers like me. They want customers like many of you who go and get a new cell phone every year. So that now that Apple they've become the first $1 trillion market cap company. Professor Galloway had predicted that Amazon would be. Amazon has finally reached $1 trillion market cap, but they were second. But Apple earlier this year, a few months ago, and Amazon a few months after that, but they became the world's first $1 trillion market cap company. Why? Because they keep bringing out a new, slightly revised version of their phone every year, and they're sycophantic individuals who, even though the phone's hardware is the same, the last 4 generations, the hardware is the same. The processor is no faster. The RAM is no better. Now, the screen is different. Samsung makes a better screen, and Apple actually buys their screens from Samsung because Samsung owns the patent. So every time you want to talk about your Apple screen is better, by the way, Samsung makes the screen for your Apple phone. But don't let a little thing like facts and reality get in the way of your delusions. In any case, they become the world's first $1 trillion market cap company on the strength of knowing who their core customer base is. Well, Nike knows who theirs are. And it's not a bunch of middle-aged country music playing hillbillies. That's not Nike's core customer base. White males are not, middle-aged white males are not Nike's core demographic. They don't have to please you. And furthermore, there is no growth in pleasing you. Nike is not going to sell more shoes by appealing to the Tim McGraw, Ted Nugent wing of society. Nike is not going to sell more shoes by trying to appeal to Toby Keith's demographic. Ain't gonna work. Now, the problem is that in the land of white privilege, Toby Keith and Ted Nugent have told themselves that they are the most important people. So when something goes wrong that they don't like, they start talking like they're the most important people because they've told themselves we're the most important people. But in the real world, you're not. You are not the most important people. You are not. You haven't been for quite some time. And where Nike is concerned, you are not, but that's not preventing them from going into these antics. But at the end of the day, you're not the core audience, and furthermore, you're not where future growth is going to be. Nike is not going to sell more athletic shoes to middle-aged and elderly white males. That's just the bottom line. The future of Nike is not going to be built on middle-aged and elderly suburban yuppies or country dudes. That's not where the future is. That isn't where the past was, and it's not where the future will be. No matter what that demographic might tell itself about itself, they're finding out that nobody gives a damn what you think. And they're going to have a very tough time processing this. They can put up all the articles they want to, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is you affected nothing. Nike had a choice to make. They made the right choice. Nike had a horse to bet on. They bet on the right horse. And they have chosen this in a transformative way that will future-proof them and genre-proof them. That they are selling Colin Kaepernick, the man. They're not selling Colin Kaepernick, the football player. That is the genius of it. Last but not least, Colin Kaepernick and his representatives have made the decision that getting back into the NFL is not the most important thing. That Colin can establish himself as a brand outside of the NFL. Where many rappers fail to make the transition from being rappers to producers. They try to be rappers, that is, athletes their whole lives. Kaepernick is already making the transition, leveraging his name for benefits as opposed to his playing for benefits. And it's genius. Absolutely working. It'll be very interesting to see where this is 5-10 years from now. My prediction is if the NFL does the smart thing, they will let him back in. They will turn the cameras off when he's on the sidelines, and you will simply pretend that you don't see him kneeling. Let him get out on that field. Beat him on the gridiron, but now here's the other problem right here. This is anathema to them because they don't believe in fairness. Remember, Richard Spencer taught you this. These guys are the white supremacists. They don't believe in fairness. So they don't actually believe that they can beat Colin on the playing field. That's the reason that they're terrified of letting him back out there on it, because while I'm saying I can sit here and say, let him back on the playing field, beat him out there, because I believe in fairness and I believe when you compete, you can win. These guys don't believe they can win at all. So they're like, man, you're talking suicide. Stop talking crazy. Stop talking stupid. Don't let him back out there. They don't believe they can actually beat him. That's why they're trying to prevent him from playing, because they don't believe he can actually win. They don't believe they can actually win against him. So they're not going to let him back out there because they don't believe they could win. Even though they're not the ones who'd actually even be playing him. It'd be black males playing him. But they don't believe they could actually win if it's a fair fight. They want it to be a fait accompli. They want it to be already decided. They don't want a fair fight. But if they were smart, they would let Colin go back out there, let him play, and if you can consistently beat him for 3 seasons, because this protest situation is not going to go away on its own, but if you go after, now I'm telling you a little bit of strategy right here. White supremacists, I'm giving you strategy. If you want to stop a movement, you go after the head. You go after that iconic figure that is driving the emotion. If you want to stop Colin Kaepernick, get him back out on that field. Beat him out there. Show that your icon is not immortal. He doesn't possess any superpowers. He's just a mortal man. He can be beaten. Get him back out there on that field and show that you can beat him. Start putting some L's on his record. Show that, yeah, you can support Nike. They support losers. That Nike swoosh all of a sudden is going to look like a big L. That's what you want to do if you want to beat Kaepernick at this point. Because if you continue allowing this to be a battle of public relations, if you continue to allow this to continue to be a battle of public perception, if you insist on attempting to fight Colin Kaepernick on the ground of personality, he is gonna beat you all coming and going like he's doing right now. This is a fight you cannot win. Your best move, bring him back in so you can get him somewhere where you can start softening him up. Start tarnishing that image of him being this winner, that he's been able to beat you. Bring him back. Start showing that you can at least lay a glove on him. Start showing that he's not bigger than the game. That's how you would do it if you were smart, which you're not. The smart guy is Colin right now. Momentous days, ambitious days ahead. If you have not been to our website, racewarmovie.com, that is racewarmovie.com, you definitely want to go there. We're releasing our newest documentary, Race War, which is going to be opening in theaters across America here next month. You definitely are going to want to see that. We're going to go more in depth on a number of different subjects, including this ideology about not being fair and believing that white supremacy gives you a right to be, an obligation to be unfair to other people. You definitely are going to want to check that out. And also, you want to check out our previous documentary work, 7 a.m. and Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing American Style. Definitely something that you're going to want to see there as well. Absolutely. And I would be glad to see you all next month. This concludes our special edition of the BlackChannel.net radio program. My name is Mr. Jason Black, and until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, handle your business or your business will handle you.